Hi guys, welcome back to the Bad Timing Club. So today we're going to be working on the engine some more. As you might remember from episode 10, we have cracked pistons. So today we're going to be working on replacing those and getting new ones into the engine.
So we're pressing out the piston wrist pins. We've got our old Harbor Freight 12-ton shop press going over here. Space is kind of tight, but it is what it is. So we've got it set up, and I'm just going to press it through. So this one broke free pretty easily, so it's just going to press right out. We just have to press this all the way through. And there we go.
Cool.
So there's our connecting rod. So they all are stamped with a number corresponding to the cylinder, and that's how we track which way around and where each one goes. We put my excellent welding skills to use and made up this fixture. So we'll clamp the new piston in place and then use that as a stop to set. So we've already adjusted it. So then when we push the wrist pin through, it goes to a specific stop. And then instead of a rod oven, we have the cookie oven. Sometimes it's used for things besides baked goods, but we've got the rods in there now. Got it at 500, and we're leaving them in for like, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. And that seemed to work on the first one we did, so hopefully that's okay. The wrist pins are in the freezer, so they stay nice and cold. It's currently supposedly a blizzard outside, and it's like 15 or 16 degrees right now. So we kept the pistons and the pins out on the porch, so they should be nice and cold. But first, I gotta take my vitamins.
Any vitamin brands out there? We like vitamins.
All vitamins. Really? We just keep fruit-shaped candy in the jar? Save one of those for later. Alright, we got our piston set up. We're just spin out of the freezer. Make sure it's dry and clean. Get it started. And then, what is this guy on the left?
Mm-hmm.
There's number 7.
It's smoking.
Numbers on that side. There he goes. So I hit the stop. Yep, that looks decent. Yeah, it's pretty hot. So we got all our wrist pins pressed in. Next up we got to install all the rings. We got the oil rings in these 4 already. These went on pretty easily, but the compression rings are cast iron, and you're not supposed to spiral those into place. So we need to go to good old AutoZone and find a ring installation tool. And it's currently a blizzard, so this will be fun.
Yeah. So this is our storm. It's not really actively storming. We just got a bit of snow.
It's supposed to go all night, though. They're saying like 10 to 20 inches. In the meantime, we're launching off speed bumps in the snow. Oh no, Poppy! The rings on the pistons. We went to AutoZone and nobody had anything around. So we're gonna have to try and improvise something. But first off, we put on the oil, oil ring spacer. So it's kind of like a spring. This one just stretches around pretty easily. It goes down to the lower ring land, clicks in. And then on each side of it, there's a wiper. So they just kind of roll into place. And then make sure the end doesn't scratch the piston. So there's the top one installed. I do the same for the bottom. And then stretch out the end. Clicks in. So now we've got top and bottom oil wiping rings, and then the spring in the middle. It's kind of a spacer to keep them separated. So next up, we've got to put on one of these cast iron rings in the middle groove, and then we've got a similar looking one in the top groove. On these, we need to find a tool that we can use to stretch them open and help hold them stretched open so we can just drop them straight on. The instructions explicitly say do not roll the cast iron spacers in place. Check back after we figure out what we're doing. So there's a specific pattern that all the rings need to be pointing in. So if this is the front of the engine, the two compression ring gaps are here and here. The wavy oil ring spacer is pointing towards the back of the engine, and then each oil wiping ring is clocked off of that. So we'll do that based off of this arrow on the top of the engine, or on top of the piston. So we gotta clock all these, and then we can install them. So what we're working on now is installing the pistons into the block. We got all the pistons assembled, and now it's a matter of just cleaning out each cylinder bore, wiping it down with some oil, and then we prepare the pistons. All the rings have to be lined up in a specific orientation, and then use a piston ring compressor and just drop the pistons in, tap them into place. It's not too bad a deal, but there's just a lot of cylinders, so I guess it's going to take a little while. So we're installing the bearing first. We found it's a lot easier to do it before the piston is in the engine, and then you have to try and fit it between the crank and the connecting rod. So we're just wiping some assembly lube on it per the manual. And then these have a little tab on them, and that goes into the notch in the connecting rod. Make sure everything seats properly. So that's in, and then we'll put some more on the actual bearing surface. Yeah, this stuff is even harder to squeeze when it's being cold. So we'll get that, and then we'll also get the crank journal to make sure it's all properly lubed up. So we've got our rubber tubing on the ends of the studs to protect the crank journal. We've got oil on the rings, on the whole piston surface, and then also on the wrist pin. So everything's nicely lubricated, cleaned up as best as we can. Now, this is probably not the cleanest of environments to build an engine, but so now there's a arrow on these pistons that points towards the front of the engine, so that's the way around this goes. Just to verify the number on the connecting rod that's stamped on it should be to the outside of the engine. So this is cylinder number 2. Make sure it's pointing forward, make sure all the rings are clocked correctly, and then just going to drop it down the bore very carefully, and it's just going to sit in here. So it's sitting on the oiling ring right now.
So Zach is working on getting on the tool that compresses the piston rings.
It's slippery.
And ours is kind of halfway broken. It came with our tool chest.
So this is starting to clamp. Alright, so that's clamped around the piston. Now we should be able to just tap it down.
And there we go.
Easy as
Me too, I like pie.
Alright, so we got our piston in. Now I'm going to pull off these tubes that we use to protect the crankshaft. I'm going to rotate the crank down into this bearing. Give a little assembly lube on it all first. Alright, we've got our bearing installed in the bearing cap here. And verify that the number points to the outside. Should match up with the number on the connecting rod. And those drop in place. Squirt in there. Maybe I'm going overboard with this stuff. I don't know. It's a great color though. We've got nuts to go on the ends. That's it. That's the process. We're just going to do that 5 more times. So the last piston is in, but what happened when we were taking it apart is we dropped one of the nuts for the connecting rod into the bucket of sludge that came out of the engine. So we're playing Go Fish. Half a bearing is 5 points.
Yay!
Sludge that was in our engine, negative 1 point.
Negative 1 point. It's not my fault. There it is. I see it. Ta-da!
That's so...
It's really gross.
Yeah. So after months of hard work and dedication, our truck is finally ready to hit the... No. So we got all the pistons in, all the caps are on, so now we're going to get out the old trusty manual, find the torque spec, and then torque all these down. And then maybe we're done for the night. It's warmer, but it's still cold. It's like 20 degrees out, so my feet are cold.
So we have all the pistons in, and everything's torqued down. Zach's struggling.
It got heavier.
It did, but it's more like an engine now, so progress.
Alright, that's it for today. We got a lot more good stuff coming up soon. We're going to be rebuilding the heads, getting those back on the engine, getting the engine back in the truck. So if you like what you've seen so far, feel free to follow along, subscribe, like the video, and we'll keep putting out some more stuff.